Uh, Good morning, students. Now, in this video, we'll see what is the meaning of persistent connection and non-persistent connections. Now, in earlier session, we have seen what is the format of the request message, what is the format of the response message. Now we know how client makes the request to the server, how server accept the request, process the request, and accordingly give the response to the client. But what happens actually when clients make the request to the server? At that time, how server responds to the client, it is based upon the type of connection, whether it is persistent connection or whether it is a non-persistent connection. When we talk about the HTTP protocol, protocol version 1.0, by default it supports what? Non-persistent connection, and HTTP protocol version 1.1 by default it supports what? Persistent connection. Now let us try to understand what is the meaning of this persistent and non-persistent connection. It is very important for us now Now let us see this diagram which shows the interaction between the client and server. Now scenario here is what? Now the client is trying to retrieve the file from the server, okay, whose name is what? File 1. But actually that file 1 has two images along with the text, that is image 1 and image 2. Means these two files are also part of the file 1. These two images and along with some textual information that file 1 has. That is file 1 is what? It is a one web page, okay, which is hosted on the server. Now what is the first interaction done by the client? Clients makes the connection establishment request, okay, to the server along with the actual request to retrieve the file 1, which is indicated in this diagram by the yellow stream. Now at that time the server accept the request of establishing the connection, and at the same time server accept the request and sends the reply back to the client, okay, but that response only include the actual file 1, okay, actual file 1 with textual information. The image files, image 1 and image 2 files, which are part of that file 1, are not yet transferred as a response to the client. Then what happens in this? When connection is established by the between the client and server, response is sent back to the client and the connection is terminated. Okay, connection is not maintained. Now still for fulfilling this request we need to retrieve image 1 and image 2 also, but for retrieving these two files, image files, from that web page, file 1, again it is necessary to establish the connection with the server. So again clients make the request to the server, connection is established, and this first file, that is image 1 file, is transferred to the client side. Again that connection is terminated. So still that image 2 file is remaining. So again client makes the request to the server, okay, and server accepts the request, and at this time server sends the second file, that is image 2 file, to the client, and the connection is terminated. Now that complete web page along with these two image files are retrieved on the client side, and then it is displayed in front of client. No, so what is important here? So every time when you make the request to the server to retrieve certain file, at that time there is a separate connection for each and every file. That may be a main web page, or that may be a different types of images which are part of your main web page. So separate request needs to be sent every time, okay, when you want to retrieve certain type of file from the server. So once the connection is established, it is not maintained until all the files from that particular web pages are maintained. So this scenario is called as what? Non-persistent connection. Connection is not persistent. Connection is established and terminated for each and every file, new file request. So your HTTP version 1.0 by default it supports the non-persistent connection. So now it involves lots of interaction, and again it is a overhead on the server, because server has to start every time uh, the slow start procedure for completing the request and generating the response and sending it to the client. Now let us see the next part of this. So as I told you, HTTP version 1.1 specifies persistent connection by default. Now let us see what is the meaning of the persistent connection now. Now let us see the example. Now this is the same scenario as our previous example. Here also we are trying to retrieve the file 1, that is a web page name. File 1 is the name of that particular web page, which has image 1 and image 2 files. But now in this case we are using what? HTTP protocol 1.1 by default, which supports what? Persistent connection. Persistent connection means what? Once the connection is established, it is not terminated until all the files which belongs to that particular web page are transferred to the client. So now as shown in this figure, you just see clients make the connection establishment request to the server accept the request, and servers give the response to the file 1. But after getting the response of the file 1, the connection is not terminated. Instead, another request is sent by the client to the server, okay, to retrieve the image 1 file. Again response is sent back by the server to the client. Image 1 is retrieved. Again what happens? Again request made by the client to retrieve the image 2. Okay, again that server accepts the request and sends the file back to the client, that is image 2. Now all the files which belongs to that main web page, that is file 1, are now retrieved. Now it is time to terminate the connection. Now if you compare these two diagram, okay, so for each and every file, not necessary to terminate the connection while retrieving the different files from that web page. Okay, instead once the connection is established, you can directly make the request, not necessary to establish the connection again and again while making the request for every new file, okay, in this interaction. So that is what your HTTP protocol 1.1, which supports what? Persistent connection. Means once the connection is established, it is not terminated until and unless all the files from that particular web pages are retrieved and sent to the client. So this is all about your HTTP persistent connection and non-persistent connection. Now in next section we'll see some more concepts which are related to this, that is your cookies and the proxy server. So thank you very much for watching this.